and welcome to the Space King podcast, where all things converge, from the innermost depths of the mind to the outer reaches of the cosmos. This is your reality.
Hello, and welcome to the Space King Podcast, Episode 2, Paranormal and Spirits. I'm your host, Jericho, here with David. Hello, David. How are you today?
What's up, man? How are you doing tonight? You ready?
Yep, I'm doing good. I'm ready to get the show on the road.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of days, I can tell you, with doing research and stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Because, well, you know, looking at like all these different haunting stories and everything like that, I've been sleeping okay, but you know, you hear a bump in the night, I'm like, what was that? I don't remember hearing that noise before. So yeah, you know, freak yourself out very easy if you want to. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand. But,
well,
good.
Go ahead. I know, I was just going to say, so what do you got to start out tonight with?
Well, I'm going to start off with a more well-known thing I have tonight on the list of things I want to talk about. But and then I'll work my way down to some lesser-known things. But okay. So my first thing I have here is the Eastern State Penitentiary in the Philadelphia area.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that. That wasn't that like didn't they do that on one of those shows when those paranormal shows used to be on all the time, like Ghost Hunters or something like that? They talked about it.
Yeah, they did, and I've actually been there in person when I was younger. It was kind of creepy, but I didn't go there. I went there as a field trip when I was in, I believe, high school. Or
that was a field trip in high school, really?
Yeah, they took us there, and we didn't go there for the haunted part of it. We went there for the historical significance for history class. And,
yeah, but that just seems kind of funny, though. But,
yeah, well, growing up in Pennsylvania, it was only 4 hours away from where I grew up. So,
yeah.
I went there, and it wasn't too. It was creepy, but I don't think I experienced anything while I was there. There were certain things I thought was maybe just my mind, but who knows at this point. I have to go back sometime and check it out now that I'm more into these things. But they actually host a haunted house every year. You can go. You can get tickets and go now. I didn't know that. And
really?
Yeah, they do a haunted house. Yep. And it goes from, what is it, September to November. And it's cheap if you go on one of the green days. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. I bring it up because that's sometime I want to go there. I was thinking about maybe... what do you call it? Making like a vlog or something there and experiencing things now that I've more in tune with things. And the other thing is, it was on Ghost Hunters. It was on some other things. There've been lots of people that have gone there and reported seeing things and everything. And it's just one of those things where it's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the U.S., I guess.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that it is.
It was, I forget, I have to go back and look. It was from the 1800s to 1971, I think is when they ran, and they actually used it as a prison. So it was, the early 1800s?
And they used to execute people there, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Didn't they do executions? That's one of the reasons they think it's so haunted, is because of all the executions that took place.
Yeah, it's a very well-known prison. It's abandoned, and they keep maintain it to an extent, but I think some of the rundown parts of it definitely add to the lore of it.
Yeah.
So they definitely draw people in that way. And it's definitely one of those places that I wouldn't go to if you're faint of heart, because it's pretty freaky. It's not like you hear everything. Like, I did hear stuff when I was there. I just assumed it was animals, though, because it leaks in certain areas. There's windows the glass is broken everywhere. I think animals live in certain sections. It's crazy.
Yeah,
a lot of it was restricted.
Yeah, well, I do know that some of the investigations that have taken place there,
Mm-hmm.
they caught stuff, and I think on one of the shows, one of the cameramen or something actually got like pushed down and got hurt. He actually got physically hit by something. I remember that happening when they were there one time, and he actually got hurt.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was a while ago, but it's definitely a place I would be interested in going sometime and checking it out. So
yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Maybe make a video for Space King and see how it goes.
We'll do a live broadcast from there
on
night at Halloween. How's that sound?
Well, I don't know if we could do that on Halloween because they actually do.
Yeah,
they do events there, so I don't know if we.
Yeah, well, obviously you'd have to get permission and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
that's cool.
And there'd be a bunch of people running around screaming and people wearing masks and stuff. So it'd be kind of counterproductive, I think.
Yeah. Now, do you know of any like history of the place, of like hauntings of certain inmates that are supposedly there or anything like that?
I know they talk a lot about Al Capone. Apparently, I think it was Al Capone was hosted there. He has they have a room. They left his room there and they left it in shape where he had a bunch of like nice furniture. He had a bookshelf, like a writing desk and lamps and a picture on the wall and everything, and they keep that up to shape. But that was apparently him being who he was. He got treated with having nice furniture and stuff in his cell.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I mean, it's still a tiny cell, but...
Yeah, but he got treated better, yeah. No, I'm just curious as to, like, if there's any known inmates that supposedly haunt the place that they, feel it's this inmate or something that died there at the prison, either, of old age, execution, or some sort of violent incident that he got killed.
Oh, there's lots of stuff like that there. I can't tell you a particular one, but when I was there, I forget. It's been such a long time. They were saying that there was a lot of people died there.
Yeah. So, it's not surprising that it would be haunted. I mean, most hauntings occur, like ghost hauntings occur around a violent death of some kind or an accidental death of some kind, and that seems to project a haunting onto a place, as opposed to a poltergeist, which seems to be centered more around a particular person and then only last for a certain amount of times, where hauntings can go on for decades and decades.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if you look through some of the pictures that they have, and they have I didn't get to go to a lot of the places when I was there in person because a lot of it was still under construction and locked up for safety reasons. And but they have what looks to be different medical rooms. And they got the bed, like they got the chairs with the latches and stuff in them that they strap people down in, and they got the lights above them and all that crazy stuff. So it was think of old school medical rooms and stuff like that in such an old place.
That'd just be creepy just to see that in its own,
Yeah. Pretty much.
When was that prison built?
It was the early 1800s.
Okay.
I believe. I just had it up. I don't remember exactly when it was made, but it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Find it. I'll do a quick search for it. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm definitely planning on going there again at some point. It's not that far from where I currently live, so.
Awesome.
All right, what do you got?
Sounds like a good trip. Well, my first one, it's a fun little story. This is a Fox affiliate. It is Fox 43, and it was a local newscast. Now, I don't know where. It didn't say in the clip, or I missed it. But what happened is, excuse me, I'm clearing my throat there. I got cough for a minute. They had the news there got notice of a person who was having a haunting in the town. So they decided to go do a human interest story on this woman. And so they send a news crew out. They send this female reporter, and they send a camera guy, a couple other sound guy and stuff like that. And they go to her house, and they don't expect to find anything. They're going to kind of treat this as a human interest story, ha ha ha, funny ghost kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so they get there, and they're interviewing the woman, and
all of a sudden, the guy behind the camera operator, is like, "Hey, I'm having a problem here. My arm is hurting. It's burning, and my one arm is really starting to burn." And the lady goes, "Oh my God, you got scratched, didn't you?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, my arm has a scratch on it." And so he actually got, so now the news crew is like, "Oh, okay, maybe there's something here," So they start experiencing small things while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, the lady showed him a film that she had on her phone of asking the entity to close a door, and the door closes shut. Now, of course, the news crew doesn't know if this is real or if it was fake. They don't know. But they also had an incident happen while they were filming. I guess the lady pulled out her phone, and she was also showing how she was showing them pictures that she had gotten orbs and stuff, I guess, in the place.
You're talking about the orbs that float around.
She was and while she's holding her camera, it was in the mode to take a photograph. You see something dart in front of the camera, look like a hand. Like a black shadow of a hand, kind of like it darts in front of the camera for a second. So, okay. And then she showed them, and this is really interesting. The lady shows them a photograph, a picture that was taken in the basement of what the woman called a shadow figure or a shadow being. This is what the woman called it. And if you look at the picture in the video, it kind of has this almost looks like a black kind of top hat. Mm-hmm. The shape of it, and then kind of has what would look like hair maybe sticking out on the sides of it, kind of ragged, and then the bottom looks like it would be wearing a long black coat. And that really freaked me out, because we had talked about in the before about a dream figure that is representative of that type of figure that has appeared in people's dreams.
Okay. I know.
So. Yeah. So I thought it was real interesting. And just also let everyone know, we're going to be posting these articles and stuff that we're talking about in our Discord under news. So if anybody has any interest in seeing what we're talking about, the video will be posted there along with other news articles that we're going to be talking about tonight and everything. So the news crew, getting back to the story, the news crew got really freaked out. They weren't expecting this,
Yeah.
And of course, then they cut back to the studio, and they have the anchor there at the desk, and the woman that was the field reporter, and they have the camera guy, and they talked to him about it. The camera guy said, "Yeah," he goes, "I had a scratch on my arm, and it had gotten really hot," and they feel something's taking place there, and they totally didn't expect that. And I thought that was such a great little story. But this news crew goes out to do what they think is going to be kind of a fun fluff piece, and they freaking find something. And it's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome, man. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I haven't personally experienced anything physical with ghosts or anything like that, thankfully. But I know people that have, and it would be pretty intimidating, I believe, to see that.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually, went there like that, and you got scratched, be like, I would have probably been out the door. I don't think I would have hung around. Not if I'm physically being, it's one thing to be like, okay, maybe light goes on or off or something, or you see something in a picture because you snapped the picture or whatever. But if you're physically being touched like that, and it was painful, that would not, I wouldn't stick around. No way.
Later. I'm out.
Yep. Hey, adios, amigos. I'm out the door. So.
Yeah, no, I get that. Real quick, I found when it was operating at Eastern State Penitentiary.
Okay.
It was running from 1829 until 1971.
Oh wow.
So over 100 years.
Yeah. Oh man, a lot of things could take place within that time, and I'm sure there were people that were, violently killed by other inmates.
Oh yeah.
Prison.
It was a prison from 1829 to 1971 that they actually hosted and held people in there and ran it as a penitentiary. that's a very, very long time for a prison to be running.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's older ones elsewhere, but for the U.S. at least.
Yeah. That's a long time, and it makes sense that it could be, really haunted like that. That's a lot of things. So anyways, that was one of my little stories that I had for tonight that I just thought was an interesting little story. And definitely you'll want to check out the video. At the end of the show, it'll be posted. People should check it out. It's pretty cool. So what else you got?
So the other thing I have is actually in the town in which I grew up, there's a university, and that university is supposedly haunted, and they talk about it. It was the university has been, I think, around since it's been around since the mid 1800s, I believe, and it's still up and running. It started off as a much smaller, I think it was a college, and it turned into a university at some point.
Okay.
But
what's the name of the university?
Mansfield University.
Okay.
Yep. And at one point, so growing up there and visiting, a couple times I heard people talk about it. They talked about the ghost Sarah that supposedly lived in the one building, which is the library. Mm-hmm. And you go to this one section of the library, there's 4 floors, like 3 or 4 different floors, and you can't go up all the way to the top, but you can look over the edge. Oh, apparently our music's too loud, so I gotta turn it down a little bit. Alright.
Oh, thank you, Marcus. Marcus is our moderator in the chat. Thank you, Marcus.
Alright. So, apparently, at some point, there was this woman, Sarah, that, I don't remember how the story goes, if she was pushed down the stairs, or she fell down the stairs, or if she fell off of the 3rd or 4th floor, because if you look, when you're in that college, in that library, it's got one of those areas where it's got the opening in the middle, and from all floors you can look down all the way to the bottom floor.
Okay, yeah.
And supposedly this woman died there, and everyone thinks that it's been around for a long time. They think that she haunts the place. And I was reading the story that from someone that was working there since 1985. They said that they were trying to peek in one of the rooms, and they got scared by like a gust of wind. It was him and her and her friend. And they went running down the stairs to where the little brother was. They went down there to meet him, and he asked them who was up there with him, because he saw 3 shadows chasing behind them. So they don't know if it was Sarah, if it was something else, but it's supposedly haunted, and I haven't been back since I've got into all these things, but it'd be interesting because I hear lots of people tell stories of experiencing phenomenon there at the school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think maybe the music does need to be turned down just a little bit more, because I was checking the volume to the thing and it still sounds kind of loud.
All right. Is that better? Or is it too quiet?
Hold on, waiting. Yeah, I think that's probably better.
Okay. That's fine. But,
so now,
go ahead.
do they, what makes people think that like, what experiences people had that they think that she's haunting the place?
They think they see people. Some people have reported of getting cold, like hitting cold spots. Other people said that they heard people that were there that they couldn't find. They heard a woman that was there, and then the one time someone told me that they heard a piano playing, but there was no piano in the building, and there was no one else there. They were the only person there.
Wow.
So, yep, it's supposedly pretty haunted.
So has it been investigated? Like, has anybody done any real investigations into the fact that they think it's haunted?
I do believe that they have. I don't know if it's ever been anything to the level of like ghost hunters or anything like that. I think people checked it out.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if she died, if it was an accident, even if it was like an unexpected accidental death, you know, even if she wasn't pushed or anything like that, that fits the criteria for a haunting. You know, because it's like I said before, hauntings always surround kind of accidental, violent things when someone dies. And I don't know if it's like if it's because of it being like accidental, so it's unexpected for the person, or the violence that takes place, that somehow it like leaves an imprint in like a magnetic state in the vibration of the place that it's in, you know, that it causes it to continue to exist there. That's one of the theories of why hauntings take place and why they're always connected to unexpected death or violence. That because of that, it causes an imprint in like a vibrational state that causes them to exist.
Right here, this article is also talking about the fact that other people reported hearing unexplained noises, like I had said. Like they said they heard a woman crying. Other people said they saw mysterious apparitions such as floating candles that were just floating in there for no reason.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that building's pretty old. It's one of those old brick buildings that's been around for, I don't remember when the school was established, but it was definitely the 1800s, and Mansfield's been around for a long time. It used to be a very high traffic area for moving things up and down through Pennsylvania. They used to ferry things in on the river. So that college
that's cool.
has been around
that's pretty awesome story, you know. And what was the woman's name again?
Sarah. That's all they call her. It was just Sarah.
Oh, just Sarah. Okay, so there's no information on like her background or anything like that.
Yep.
At all. Okay.
No, apparently here it's saying that ghost hunters did come to the universe in 2001, and they proved the existence of Sarah, even though later research into the existence of Sarah, led by the MU Public Relations, found no record of suicide and theorized it was merely a campus legend. But at the very least, even if Sarah didn't exist, people report experiencing things there regardless. So when that story about the three shadows chasing them down the stairs, it made me think, because there was only two people. It was two people up there that ran down the stairs, and then the boy said he saw three shadows behind them. So it was that would lead me to believe that maybe there were shadow people or something there, because in my experience, after I've gotten into these things, there's a lot of different activity and negativity that goes on and around that entire area.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned suicide. Did they think it could have possibly...
That's the legend.
She killed herself?
Yeah, that's what they're saying here, apparently.
Apparently,
that's the local legend.
Yeah, that she committed suicide and now is haunting the place. It'd really be interesting if you could do research to find more information on her, to see if she was actually a real person, someone with that name that would have been at the school at that time, maybe death records, possibly find a grave somewhere. Because for me, it's the research and the scientific view of it that I'm mostly interested in. And lends credibility to these type of things. That's what does it for me.
And I haven't been there. I've been there, but I never was there for that purpose, and I never even considered ever looking into it from that means. But
that'd be an interesting way to do the investigation to find out about her.
It'd probably take a lot of work, because you got to talk to all the people that run the place, and that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, but they'll have records.
Well, here it's saying that
dating way back, they should all the way back, of all the students that ever attended school, unless there was a fire and records were lost or something like that. Somehow records had been lost. Yeah,
well, right here it says that the MU Public Relations director found no record of suicide in the campus up there. So
okay,
but the ghost hunters said that they found evidence. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they said they found. I don't see it here on the article.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what information they dug up and everything, and to find out, because she could have died accidentally, and then over the years the story has developed into it was a suicide. You know,
which I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that it's not haunted if it wasn't a suicide. You know, it's just people like to embellish onto stories and stuff like that.
Yep.
But you know, you can search into the death records of the town and all that type of stuff to find out what would be going on exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's cool though, because that would be a great place to go visit and, you know, check it out for sure.
Well, there's plenty of places I could take you up there that are supposedly haunted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I'm not going to be sleeping tonight after this episode. I can tell you that, my friend.
I'll be sleeping like a baby. That stuff doesn't bother me.
I'll sleep with the light on, because you know what freaks me out all the damn time in my house is that my room is off of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And the freaking ice maker drops ice in the middle of the night. And I'm like, what the fuck was that noise? Like, what was that noise? I'm like, the damn ice maker again. You know?
Yep.
Just because you hear this bang noise, and I'm like, what is that?
All right. So what else you got for me?
All right. Well, this is my second thing. I only have two things tonight.
Okay.
I did have a third one, but then when I thought about it, we're going to talk about it anyways. So I figured I'll just leave it for when we're talking about the rest of the stuff. But This story that I'm going to bring up right now is a pretty famous case. And what drew me to this case at first when I was looking for articles and information was the gentleman who was the lead investigator on the case. This took place back in 1974, and the lead investigator on this case was Dr. Barry Taff, and his name is what drew me to it for reasons. And so I want to give a little information about him because that's important to the story. Dr. Barry Taff, he holds a doctorate in wait a minute, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here.
Right.
He has a doctorate in psychophysiology and a minor in biomechanical engineering.
What's the first thing? What is that?
Oh, the psychophysiology.
Yeah.
I believe it's the study of like telekinesis and paranormal and how the mind works in the physical world, like being able to, I think, I'm not exactly sure, but from what I have been able to understand, don't know, you could look up the definition for me while I'm talking, which would be great if you want to, so we know exactly about that. But he has a minor in, and I said biomechanical engineering.
Okay, I know what that is.
And he's a world-renowned parapsychologist, and he worked out of UCLA's former parapsychology laboratory from 1969 to 1978 as a research assistant. He's investigated over like 4,500 cases of paranormal activity over the years since he's been involved in that. And how he got involved with UCLA in the laboratory is when he was a kid, he had psychic abilities. He was able to see things and predict stuff and everything, supposedly. Okay. So he went, that's how he got involved there. They actually did a study on him, and it was published in behavioral, what was that in? It was published in it was published in behavioral neuropsychology, and it was a laboratory investigation of telepathy, a study of a psychic. So they actually did a study on him and determined that he was psychic, that this guy had psychic abilities. Okay. So he then becomes a research assistant there at the laboratory, and he meets another gentleman called Kerry Gaynor, and they become friends, and they go, mostly they're doing field work. Yeah. So they're going out and doing investigations into paranormal activity, and they really don't find a whole lot of things. When they go out and do these investigations, most of them turn out to not be anything. But at one point, Kerry Gaynor, is at a bookstore called Hunter's Books, and it's there in around UCLA. And so they're at the bookstore and he's talking with another friend. They're talking about a case, about a haunting. And there are two women there. And those women overhear them. And the one woman says, "Oh, excuse me, but my house is haunted." And they're like, "Oh, okay, really? Well, here's our card. We'll get in touch with you and we'll come out and check it out." So they finally get in touch with this woman and everything, and they go to her house. And she lives in, at the time, this was in Culver City, California. And so they go to her house and they meet this woman. And her name was Doris Byther. Okay, so her name was Doris Byther, excuse me. And they meet her, and the house where she's living has been condemned like 3 times by the city. She's not even supposed to be living in this house, I guess. It's pretty ramshackle, find out. She has 3 kids that live there, an older teenage boy and 2 younger boys. And I guess she had a young, I guess like a infant daughter, but they said they never met the daughter. They only ever met the 3 boys. Okay. So they go to do the investigation, and they go into her house and they sit down and talk to her. And the first thing she tells them is, "I was raped by this spirit entity. It attacked me and physically raped me." So, of course, right away, they look at each other, and, Dr. Taft kind of rolls his eyes back in his head, and he puts on his clipboard. So he writes a big P on the top of his clipboard.
Okay.
For, that this woman needs to see a psychologist, that she is mentally disturbed. And so they spend about an hour with her, and, they're like, "Well, we're glad we came out, but there isn't really anything we can do to help you. But here is a card of associate, who's a psychologist, and he'll be able to help you with this problem. He'll be able to help you." So she takes the card, they leave. And about 10 days later, I guess, they get a call from her again, from Doris, and she says, "I really would like you guys to come back out. I need help with this issue. It's getting worse." And she says that neighbors have witnessed things going on. So now they're intrigued. They're like, wait a minute. If there's an outside, witness to this event that's not involved with family but did see something, that could change things. Yeah. So since it's close by to where they are, they figure, sure, why not? We'll come back out and we'll investigate. So they come back out and they get to the house, and this all took place in August. Is really hot, I guess, and they get to the house, and there's no air conditioning in this house, so it's very sweltering, stifling, I guess, inside. And when they get in the house this time, there's this smell that is just smells like rotting, decomposing organic matter, like a dead body of some kind. That's what it smells like in this house. And so they try to find, where's this smell coming from? They can't find where the smell is coming from. I guess they brought in a piece of equipment called a sniffer that was made by Hewlett Packard, and it's made to find smells. I guess if you had a house and there was like a weird smell in it, you use this thing and you find out you have a dead possum in the wall. Wow. So they brought in this piece of equipment, and they couldn't find where the smell was coming from. Also, when they were there, the one bedroom was cold, like an icebox, like a refrigerator. They tried to figure out, where is this cold coming from? Couldn't find any reason that this room should be cold. And like I said, this was in the middle of August. The rest of the house is normal temperature. It's hot like it is outside, but that room's cold, and this has had no air conditioning. So this is happening, and they're in the kitchen talking with Doris about, what's going on, and they're asking her questions. And I guess a lower cabinet door in the kitchen opens up, and a frying pan comes flying out of it in this overarching manner and lands on the floor in the kitchen. So the first thing they do is they are over at the cabinet. They're looking through the cabinet, looking for springs, wires, anything that they can find that will explain why this pan came flying out of the refrigerator. They can't find anything, nothing. Okay, so all of these things taking place, they're intrigued now. They want to investigate this.
You said he was psychic, didn't you?
Yes. Now none of that is talked about. In the investigation, that he used any sort of his psychic abilities to do anything with this, which is interesting because that was like one of the first things I thought of when I did all my research on this thing and read the articles and saw some videos with Dr. Taff, and I was like, wait a minute, but he didn't. It's never mentioned about anything that he did like that.
Gotcha. So
they continue to investigate this, and this whole investigation took place over a 10-week period. So they're there one night, and all of a sudden in the bedroom where they're at, these balls of light appear, and they're this yellowish green color, almost like a plasma ball thing. These lights are darting across the room. They're swirling around, they're swirling around Doris, darting between everybody in the walls. Mm-hmm. And of course they're firing off photographs, like crazy, trying to, they want to capture this on film. And first thing they thought is, well, maybe this light is coming from outside. So what they ended up doing was they ended up closing off all external light sources coming into the house. Mm-hmm. Like that's the first thing.
Curtains and everything.
Yeah, but I mean, they went to the extent of taping over the windows, really making sure that no light is coming in. And still, these lights are appearing to them, and they were luminescent. They actually were lighting the room, and they could see each other because of these lights moving around in the room and everything. And all the photographs they took didn't show anything, with all the photographs they took. And it happened again, and of course they take more photographs, and they do catch this. There's several photographs that they do catch these lights, and what they caught were these arcs of light, almost like when you take a picture of something moving too fast, and your shutter speed's not fast enough to catch it, so you end up with an arc. Well, that's what they got. And one of the photographs shows Doris sitting on her bed, and it's in a corner, and the light is arcing over top of her. Okay, now the reason I mentioned the corner is that if this was a projected light onto her, it would have fallen into the corner and followed the wall. But it doesn't in the photograph. It's actually over top of her, which means it's suspended over her, this arcing light. They also caught some other photos of two parallel arcs to each other, one going up and the other one going down, of these balls of light that they had. And they also got one that looked like a comet shooting across in the photograph, and I guess has a tail on it. Looks like a comet. So those are the pictures they caught. I guess they got some other things, and other stuff was happening in the house too. Lights would come off, lights would go off, toilets flushing on their own, cabinets opening, banging, and all these type of things taking place.
Yeah.
So one night when they're there, there's a lot of other investigators from the laboratory there with them, assistants, photographers, they're trying to catch as much as they can. And these lights are swirling around, and all of a sudden, all these lights coalesce together near Doris, and an apparition forms. And it is a full body apparition from head to just below the torso. They can see the head, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the torso of the body, the whole thing, right? And it's glowing in this green color that the balls were. It was described as being made out of those lights that they were seeing. Yeah. And the object is, moving back and forth, like they can see it's animated, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. It just disappears. I should also mention that when they came into the investigation, the attacks on her stopped. the rapes that she claimed that was happening with her, that the entities that were attacking her and raping her had stopped. And she described it as two smaller entities holding her down while a larger entity attacked her. But those stopped when they came into the house.
So basically, other people being there, they're like, "Oh, okay, well, we can't do this or something."
Yeah, they don't have any explanation as to why they did stop. Although the older teenage son did say that he witnessed his mother being attacked, and there was nothing there. She was being thrown down, being attacked. He went over to help her, and he was thrown across the room.
Gotcha.
He did tell them that did happen.
So that, with everything else going on too, I'm sure they're more likely to believe it after everything they witnessed.
Yeah, exactly. And so all this is taking place, and finally, Doris she's had enough. You know, they're gonna move, and she has the money to move and everything. So they move from this place to another home, and I don't remember exactly where the other home was, but it was in the area. It was in the suburbs of LA, just like this is. And after about being there for a few weeks, same things start happening again. You know, lights going off, doors banged, the whole thing, all the stuff that's associated with poltergeist activity. Yes. And what's interesting is that it starts to expand outward, though. The neighbors who knew nothing about her or what was happening in her life, the doctors, the researchers from UCLA didn't publicize this. This was kept very quiet with them because they didn't want people to think this woman's crazy and cause problems for her. So it starts expanding outward, and then the neighbors on either side of her are starting to experience these type of things with cabinets opening, closing, lights. At the new location. Okay. So, you know, this is going. So she finally decides to move again, and she moved to another place, and they find out that yes, it's taking place again. Oh, they did. I need to step back. I digress. They did go back to the new house to investigate some more at the new house, and at the first place they were at when they were taking the photographs at the first house in Culver City, when they first got photos, they had no reference to where they were in the room really from when they took all the photos and everything. So what they ended up doing was putting poster board up on all the walls with duct tape to make a grid on all the walls, and then they orientated them magnetically north, south, east, west, so they knew when they got a photograph back where it was in the room, you know, and relative speed of how it was moving and stuff from, you know, photos and everything. And they went at the new place, they did the same thing to get photos and everything. And at one point, I guess the poster board got ripped off and flew and hit Dolores in the head. They saw it. They actually saw it rip off the wall and go at her and everything. And they said, "Hey, can you do that again?" And it freaking another piece ripped off and flew at her. Of course, you know, Doris is freaked out about this and everything. And they brought in I believe it was at the new house, they brought in film because this was before video. So they brought in film cameras to document stuff and everything. And of course, they didn't catch anything with the film. And they also brought in a recorder and a microphone, a condenser mic, to, you know, see if they could pick up any sounds or anything like that. And they're all in this one room recording. And this vase that's over towards a vase that was over towards thing, I guess, comes flying over and lands in between all of them and breaks on the floor.
Oh wow!
No one was by it. You know, they were all in towards the center of the room and is recording. And so all of these things took place, and she, like I said, she went from Culver City to the new house where it expanded out to the neighbors where they did the recordings and stuff like that. And I guess on the one recording, they get this sound of, when they played it back, this heavy breathing, you know, that's like,
gotcha.
And then they hear like this sound, which sounds like someone walking, like these footsteps. And as it's described, it sounded like something from a cheesy horror movie, Yeah. But that's what showed up on the tape, and they heard nothing when they were in the room when they recorded this. Like, they didn't hear anything, but that's what showed up on the tape. So Doris moves again to a new place, and they find out that yes, she is still having these experiences, but they didn't go to investigate at the new place.
They believed her, and they're like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They believed her. They believe that something is taking place. They don't know exactly what. They don't know what it is, but they know that something's happening to her. And then she moves to Texas, and that's where Dr. Barry Taff, he loses contact with her at this time and everything, and he doesn't know what happened to her. But he finds out from a friend of his that was there, that knew Doris, that had been doing his own investigations, that this gentleman, and I forget his name, but he's the author of the book, The Entity. That's what this case comes from. It's called The Entity. There was a book and a movie made about it. It's a very famous case. And he called him and told him that, he was writing this book, and he wanted Dr. Taff to consult on the book for some of the technical stuff that he wasn't sure about, I guess, with in the investigation with equipment and stuff like that. And then later on, the guy who wrote the book, they got it made into a movie, and Dr. Taff was also a consultant on the movie. And the movie came out in 1983 called The Entity. You can probably find it on Netflix or Amazon. And I guess he went to the screening, and he saw Doris was there, and he hadn't seen her in years, and a very long time. And he talked to her and, asked her how things were. And she said that all the phenomena had stopped. It was no longer happening to her. He says he doesn't necessarily believe her that everything had stopped. He questions whether that was the case. She passed away in 1999 of I think she had a pulmonary problem that she died of. Let me see. Coronary pulmonary failure. Okay. But they don't know what caused it. There's no explanation as to what caused her death, and she was 58 at the time that she died. So the conclusion. Oh, go ahead.
She wasn't super old or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I guess she did drink a lot. They mentioned that she did drink a lot, but the interesting thing is, he says that when she drank a lot, when she would drink, the phenomena would stop. But when she wasn't drinking, the phenomena was more present.
I wonder if she was inherently psychic and didn't know it, or something was drawing that attention.
Well, his conclusion, he has two conclusions of what could have taken place, Dr. Taff. His main conclusion is that this is a telekinesis psychic ability that she's projecting outward, or someone in her family is projecting. And that's what's causing all these events. It's not a poltergeist haunting. Mm-hmm. It's actually the person's mind, because of something that took place in the past, of some sort of physical trauma, that she's manifesting these things forward. And he did say in interview in 2000, I think it was 2013 maybe, that if you look at her claims of being raped, that two smaller entities held her down while a larger entity raped her. Mm-hmm. She had a older teenage boy and two younger sons. So the way he described it, and the way he kind of alludes, is that it's possible that in her mind she was projecting what was them. I guess she was kind of obsessed, they said in one thing, with sexual things and stuff, and she drank a lot. She was maybe abusive. That was one of the articles that mentioned that she was abusive with kids. So it was a very interesting story. I find it really interesting because it was done by a laboratory that was connected to UCLA. It was their paranormal psychology laboratory that went and investigated this thing. And again, like I said before, the science, that they're trying to look at the actual scientific reasons for why this was happening. But he also says, it could be something that exists after we die, and that could be what was causing the haunting and everything. But I'm definitely going to watch the movie for sure. I want to watch the movie. I'm dying to watch it, and everything. But I remember after I saw this article, I remembered it from years ago. I remember hearing about it. Gotcha. I just had totally forgotten about it. It's a really cool case, though, and really interesting, and documentation. And I find it legitimate because of who he is, and the fact that he's been involved in a lot of these types of things and stuff. So it's a pretty cool case. Yeah, I was just telling people that if they had any stories, they could pop on in to our podcast waiting room and let them in.
Gotcha.
You tell us their spooky story. Oh, I forgot to tell you, by the way.
What's up?
Just so you know, I am a doctor of spookology. I wanted to let you know that. I have my diploma over here. It says I am a professor of spookology from the Weeby Institute in Copenhagen, in Denmark. Just so you know that.
Gotcha.
It's official. It's hanging on my wall.
It sounds very legitimate.
It is. So a doctor of spookology.
All right.
So you know that.
But if you're ready, I got something else to tell you about.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So another place more local to where I grew up, the place called Fallbrook Cemetery. It's an old cemetery out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. You have to go through the forest, take a bunch of back roads, trees falling, just what you think of when you're going out to the middle of nowhere. And I've been there a couple times, but you go and you look through some of the gravestones. There's entire families that died to the plague and everything that lived there.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
really?
It was this one plot that's fenced in over there. It's all really old. There was an entire family. It was the mom, the father, and the children, and they were all in there together. The entire family died. And the first time I went there, it was kind of creepy. I always felt like it was kind of creepy there. We always went at night, of course. And they say it's haunted. Everyone thinks it's haunted. And I went there the first time. It wasn't too bad. A little bit creepy, but for the most part, after a little while, I felt kind of creeped out. But then after a while, that feeling went away and I was fine. I just hung out there for a while. It was actually kind of peaceful. And then I left. Well, the second time I went with Marcus and our mod and some other people. And I felt kind of creeped out at first, but then once again, I felt fine. And I felt like maybe there was some stuff, we heard some sounds and stuff, and we thought they were on the outskirts. But I believe Marcus will correct me if I'm wrong. When we were there, the one guy freaked out. And he's like, oh, don't you believe me? There's stuff here. I was like, oh, look. I was like, yes. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying that I am personally fine. And he got up in my face, started grabbing my shirt and everything. He's freaking out. And then Marcus stepped in and made him back down, which was nice because, the guy was freaking out. I don't know. He was just freaking out. Like he said he saw something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't that I didn't believe him. Like I said, I was just personally fine. I was fine the moment. I went from really uncomfortable to fine the moment I realized that as long as you're respectful, you'd be okay. As long as you're not there to cause a scene. That's what I thought in my mind. Is like I came to a realization of some sort that oh, I'll be fine as long as I'm respectful. And then I was perfectly fine. I was calm. It felt really nice after that. But he was freaking out. And then that wasn't even everyone was a little bit freaked out, but that wasn't even the freaky part. If I remember correctly, when we were leaving, there was another vehicle that was coming towards the cemetery as we were leaving in the middle of nowhere on one of these these roads that you could barely pass two vehicles by each other. And if I remember correctly, some guy in like a hood and everything got out of his vehicle and started walking towards us, and we drove backwards. Everyone was freaking out. So we drove backwards and we went another way, and we ended up taking a ridiculously long time to get back to where we needed to go. But it was just in the middle of the night, driving on a really crappy dirt road through the middle of the forest. I've been there, like I said, a couple times. We never once saw another group of people there. And then we're leaving, and then all of a sudden a car is coming down towards us, and they get out. The guy's in the middle of the road and everything. He was walking towards us. Everybody freaked out, and if I remember correctly, he ran towards us. But I don't know what that was about. It's probably just someone trying to freak us out.
Just still, out of curiosity, what type of car was he driving?
I don't know. It was nighttime, and we didn't get close enough. It was just, when a car's far enough away and they got their lights on and they get out, you can't really see anything. You just see their lights. Yeah, all we could see was their lights. It was like a sedan.
Okay. So this the cemetery that you went to, was this still a active cemetery that people were being buried in, or
no?
was
I don't believe so.
Abandoned.
I believe it was abandoned because there's no. Well, maybe not. Someone mows it, I think, because it's always mowed. It's always short, but I don't think they bury people there anymore. I think it's just...
How big was the place? I mean, was it one of the small
I would say there's
cemeteries,
anywhere
or was it a large
between
one?
like 30 to 60 different sites up there. So not very big, but big enough to be a cemetery. It's not like there's 2 stones. There's probably a good 30 stones there, and there's some big ones.
Okay.
So they got some of the big tower ones, and then they've got some tiny ones that are just sitting on the ground. Then there's some that are buried that the grass and dirt came over.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, just trying to see how large of a cemetery it actually was and stuff. And so there was talk that it was haunted, that place?
Yeah, that's a local legend. Everybody thinks it's haunted. Well, not everybody thinks it's haunted. A lot of people say it's haunted. If you mention Fallbrook, they're like, "Oh, that place is crazy." So it's just it's just the place that everybody goes. And when I was there, I felt like there was something there out in the trees, maybe, but I wasn't sure. And I thought maybe it was just an animal or something, but whatever it was, I felt like it was looking at us. So, but I was fine. Like I said, when I realized that as long as I was respectful and remained calm, everything would be fine.
Everything would be fine, yeah.
Yeah, and then that guy freaked out, and then we heard something. Well, it could have been an animal, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. But I'd be interested in going back now that I'm into all of this stuff, and I've seen some stuff now. Maybe I'll view it differently. Because like I said, I never questioned I never said that there was something there. I never said that there wasn't something there. And I never said I didn't believe in it. I just was fine myself.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure. I'll have to go back at some point. It was definitely interesting. It's here on that same website that was talking about the campus. They actually talk about it too. Where is it?
They talk about the cemetery?
Yeah, I saw it here too. It says
okay.
Fallbrook Cemetery. The sun. No, that's just her talking. This person talking about the trip. Oh, they're just narrating their trip there. Okay. Yeah, but someone said it looked different, but no, they know. They don't really go into detail about it, but they just got creeped out, I guess, is what I was reading here. But yeah, they talk about it too. There's a short video of the cemetery, actually.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
I'll have to get the link and put it in the Discord.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
But right now, real quick, I'm going to take a quick look at it, see what it looks like. Let's see, I'll post the news. There you go. Take a quick look.
Oh, okay. I see it. Yeah.
So it's not big, and it's a little bit overgrown, but it looks maintained enough to the point where it's not completely... I mean, it could naturally just be short like that, too, because it's in a clearing. It's literally in a clearing in the forest.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a cemetery that is still used,
Yep.
To this day and stuff. But you can tell by that one gravestone there that it's old. You can can see the way the writing was on that gravestone
Yeah, it's a pretty old
and
cemetery.
everything.
Oh, wow. How old was it? I think early 1900s.
Yeah.
And some
That's
of them
cool.
were earlier. But yeah, there's whole families there. And some of the
Yeah.
gravestones you can't read at all anymore.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure people have been disrespectful. I've heard stories that some people go there and they've knocked over some of the
Yeah,
gravestones
you
and
hear
stuff.
about that, teenagers and stuff. Kids do crazy things, and the adults too.
I've just
and everything.
never.
And I
It's disrespectful.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. You should never do that type of thing. I mean, if you want to go to a cemetery and be there to see if you feel something or whatever, that's fine. But you got to be respectful to the people that are buried there, because you got to remember that these are other people's loved ones. And you got to think about that. If it was your family, how would you feel? So you do need to be respectful.
Yep,
That kind of
exactly.
thing, for sure. So, like I said, I didn't really have a third story tonight.
Okay.
I kind of had thought about one, but it's such a famous thing, and I figured it's just something that we both probably had looked at and we could talk about, and that is, of course, the Amityville Horror.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that
I
the
think-
other day too.
Yeah, I think everybody knows, about the
There's
Amityville
movies
Horror.
based off of it.
The movie, there's been several movies based off of it. There's been books, a lot of talk and everything like that. I don't know how much people know though about the actual events that took place there. What I find interesting is the stuff that took place before the Lutz family moved into the house. George Lutz and his family are the ones that the Amityville Horror, the movies, the book, all that stuff is kind of based around. But Ronald Defoe Jr. is the one who murdered his entire family in the house before the Lutzes came.
Oh wow.
And he, what happened is he killed his entire family. I guess it was with a shotgun or a
Whoa.
rifle of some kind.
Pretty intense.
While they were all sleeping. And at around like 6 p.m. on Wednesday, November 13th, 1974, which is interesting.
Why
A lot of
74 interesting.
because 74 is the same time that the case of the entity was taking place.
Oh. Okay.
And so these are big paranormal things that, stuff that happened in that year, which is very interesting. So he's 23-year-old Defoe. He enters Henry's Bar in Amityville, Long Island in New York. And he says, you have to help me. I think my mother and my father were shot. And so Defoe and a small group of people, they went back to the house there, and sure enough, the parents, they find the parents were dead. Someone called the police, and the police come do investigation, and they find that, his brothers and sisters have all been killed and dead, and it turns out that he did it. And he claimed that there were voices in the house telling him to do it.
It's interesting that you say that, because I know some people personally that would too. They didn't kill anybody or anything like that, but they went through some experiences where they heard voices telling them what to do. So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So, that's what happened, and that happened before the Lutzes moved in, and I guess it was about a year later after the murders that the Lutzes bought the house, and they got they got a really good bargain on the house. I think they bought
Nobody
it for
wanted
like
it.
$80,000, and I think they knew that the murders had taken place, but they didn't really think. They were like, they didn't think anything of it and stuff like that. And so they were just like, hey, we got this house that we could never afford this type of house, at regular prices at the time.
Yeah.
But they ended up getting this place, so they moved in, and as the story goes, everyone knows they started having experiences over time as they were there and everything. And that's a story that I do believe is another one is legit, and that's because of the way it ends. They take off. They finally at the end of all of it, when they're living there, after all the experiences, everything they had, they just were like, that's it, we're gone. And they left everything they owned behind. They took nothing from the house. They got in their car and they left.
Yeah, they don't want to take it.
And never looked back. And that I find, really makes the story, somewhat very legit. When they started having problems in that house, they brought in, I guess, a priest to bless the home and everything. And the priest left. He didn't want anything to do with the house, I guess, is the way I understand it. Yeah, and I guess the one, the scene in the movie is there's all these flies in the one room and they attack the priest. I don't think that actually happened, but I do know that there were a lot of flies in the one room. But this was in the middle of winter.
Oh yeah,
and
there would
so
be a lot of flies potentially then.
A lot of people are like, well, it was the middle of winter, there shouldn't have been flies. And I'm like, if you live up in the Northeast in the wintertime, you get a lot of flies in the house, because what ends up happening is that there's an egg sack somewhere that was laid, and you're cranking the heat up to like 1,000 because it's freezing outside, and those freaking things hatch out, and the next thing you know, you've got flies all over the goddamn place.
Yep, I've experienced that living up there in the Northeast too.
So, was that actually something that was, a paranormal thing and thing? I don't know. There's scientific evidence to prove that this is what it was, that it really wasn't that. But, they also, I think, I didn't really do a lot of research. I just remember this from like a lot of things I've read in the past and listened to, that there was, they didn't have the bleeding of the walls. They talk about in the movie and stuff like that, there was like blood running down the walls, and all this. That never took place, but they did have stuff coming out of, like, I guess there were those old style doorknobs with the big square, things with like the skeleton kind of key. And I guess there was stuff that came out of those. Oh. Now what it was, who knows? I question that, as what it could have been, because those old style doors like that, you have to oil them in order to keep them working, and they have large keyholes. They get gunked up with a lot of dust and everything, and what ends up happening is with those is you'll get gunk running out of them that's thick and goopy, and what it is, it's the oil mixed with all the dirt and all the other garbage that gets in there and stuff. So again, plausible explanation for it was what it was, but who knows? Like I said, I believe that this case was real, but you have to look at things objectively and look at it of what the other possibilities could be with it. At least that's how I look at this stuff.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of other experience that take place. I don't know how much you know about it.
I've just seen the movie. Like I haven't looked into it beyond that.
So there were, a lot of other things that took place in the house and things. And I guess I think this is real. I think what ended up happening is George started to change. Mr. Lutz. He started to become kind of, I don't want to say violent, but more an angry person, I guess they were saying.
More agitated.
Exactly. And I guess he started to drink, and of course then they started to have marital problems and stuff like that. And I think at one point he was actually starting to hear voices that were telling him to, like, harm his family and stuff. I think that actually took place with him. I guess also after they'd been living there for a while, they were fine. The kids were going to sleep at night, and they were finding the kids in their beds laying on their stomachs face down. Now what makes that interesting is that's how all the DeFeo members' families were found dead when he murdered his family. All of them were laying on their stomachs with their faces down in the beds.
Okay, but people roll over on their stomachs though, so I don't understand.
Yeah, well, the thing is that all of the kids were waking up in the morning laying with their faces, like they were laying flat on the bed, with their faces down, with their stomachs laying on the bed, similar to how the family that had been murdered there had been found.
Gotcha.
So it's just one of the things that took place and stuff. I mean, it is, I don't know a lot of the details on it and everything, but it's one of the more interesting famous cases of of a haunting that took place, and absolutely 100%. I mean, I've listened to that story, and I believe it's real. I've listened to interviews with Mr. Watts and all that and stuff, and the way they talk about it, it's like, well, yeah, I don't think this man's lying. He definitely, something happened to those people there. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, I get that. It's definitely interesting. I watched the movie. It was scary. It wasn't too freaky compared to some of the movies I've seen back then. I was younger when I watched that.
Yeah.
So, I think I watched the original one when I was younger.
Okay. I think there's three movies that were made on. There was a more recent one that was made like in the late 90s. And then I think there was one done like in maybe the 80s or something, and one that was done like in the 70s or something, like right after that. I'm not exactly sure, but I think there were three movies.
I watched the one that was famous where he like breaks through the door and says, "I'm home." So.
Oh no, that's The Shining.
Oh, sorry, wrong movie. You're right. No, I've seen Images of Horror. I was just getting them mixed up there. You're right.
Yeah, that's a great movie, though. You want to talk about scary ghosts and phenomena and everything. I mean, in that movie, the way Stephen King writes that novel, he starts losing his mind, in the Overlook Hotel, and and he starts seeing ghosts, in the ballroom that are talking to him, and stuff like that. What was interesting is that in that movie, his son is psychic. His son is a psychic, and the older man that ran the hotel, I think he was a maintenance person. There's a scene in the movie where the two of them connect telepathically, and they realize they can speak to each other. And what's interesting about it is that again, would that have been, I mean, it's a fictional book obviously and everything, but is it a case of a young child using is it the telepathic abilities of the kid that's manifesting these things that are taking place when nobody knows? Because that's a theory of what takes place in some of these hauntings with poltergeists.
I believe it, because I think some of it may have to do with outside influences too that make these things manifest through the person by freaking them out.
Yeah.
Because I think telepathy is real. Believe I've experienced certain levels of that at different points with certain people.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever had like any ghosts? Do you have any of your own personal ghost stories of things hauntings or anything like that?
I haven't been haunted or seen any hauntings. I've seen a couple, but I've got some family that my brother was haunted. His house that he was living in.
Oh, really?
And I was talking to him on the phone, and he said something about it. He just said that there was a ghost. I said, okay. And then I was thinking about it while I was talking to him. I was driving, and I started describing it to him. Because, when I first started getting all this stuff, I talked to him about it. And he told me later that when we first talked about it, he thought maybe I was crazy, but it was interesting, so we kept talking about it. And then I started describing to him exactly what it was that he had seen, the ghost, what it looked like, and all this other stuff, and how it acted. And then then that was the moment where it became very real for him, and he's like, holy crap, how did you know that? Yes, it's exactly what it looked like, that's exactly what happened, that's crazy.
And what happens at their house with this
the
ghost?
place that they were staying at is it would freak them out. It would appear, and it would when they're trying
apparition?
Yeah, it was an apparition. Yeah, they would physically see it. Yep. And it was a girl or a woman, and they had never seen the face of it. They only ever saw the back of it for whatever reason. It never showed them their face. But when I became aware of it, and when I was talking to him, it's like it knew that I knew it was there somehow, and it I could see it turn to me and like bare sharp looking teeth at me. I was like, oh, that's creepy. And I asked him, I said, so have you, I started describing the face to him, have you seen it? He's like, no, I haven't seen the face yet, that's creepy. And then within a week or two, he came back later and he told me, he said, well, I saw the face, exactly what you were talking about, and it wasn't happy. I said, yeah, the thing wasn't happy. It wasn't happy that I knew it was there, because I came to find out with my experiences, things do not like other people to know that they're there unless they present themselves to them. So
Now, do they have any history on the house at all as to who would be haunting it, or
well, it was an
did
apartment.
someone die
It
there?
was an apartment, so I don't know. They don't know. But they saw it, and then they went somewhere else. And then, so that's that. But, so it was definitely interesting that he thought that was crazy that I knew about it, and I described it to him. But then later, I went with somebody to a psychic, and I was there, and we're getting tarot cards read and everything to see what they thought. I thought it was pretty neat. And I was there waiting for the other person to get their tarot reading done, and all of a sudden, in the corner of the room, I see this tall, floating, like, very matted hair woman over there in the corner just staring at me, floating. I was like, okay. So I'm sitting there, it's moving around a little bit, and then I saw it go from the left corner of the room, go over in front of me on the other side of the room, and go down the hallway and into the room that they were in. In the moment I saw it disappear into that doorway to the room they were in, they walked out. So it's like,
that's cool.
It's like it knew that they were done and finishing up, and I couldn't hear them really. I kind of heard them, but so I went in there, and the moment it walked through that door, they walked out the door. So like it went through, disappeared, and they walked out. So it was definitely interesting, and I talked to her about it, and I said, "Do you have a spirit here that kind of just hangs around?" And she said, "Yeah, I do. What? Did you see it? See something?" I said, "Yeah." I described it to her, and she said, "What's it look like to you?" And I described it to her, and she said, "Oh, well, how did it make you feel?" I said, "Well, I wasn't scared or anything, and I don't mean it's scary. It was just weird and matted looking, like you see like a whited out kind of like ghost. You know what I mean? Like they describe in movies, like pale with matted hair, like rat's nests and stuff." Yeah. So, and she said, "Oh, yeah, it hangs around here." I said, "Oh, okay." So it was interesting that she was aware of it, and I don't think she tells people that, because I don't think that would be a very good thing for business to get people to come in to get the psychic readings done. Oh, by the way, we have a ghost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, is the ghost that what she's connecting to, maybe to get the for the psychic readings?
I don't think it works that way. In some cases it might, but I don't think it works that way. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely interesting, because I think it's just aware of her being aware of things, so it hangs out around there.
Yeah. You were mentioning, your brother, and they had an experience. My sister had an experience when they moved. This was, well, let's see, this would have been maybe 10 years ago, I guess. I don't know. They were living in a house they were renting. They were moving in, and it was a new house they were moving into. And while they were moving in, they were putting stuff away, and all of a sudden my sister notices this card on the refrigerator that wasn't there before. And it was like the kind of card you get when you go to church. It has the picture of Mary on it with the Lord's Prayer. Yeah. And it's stuck on the refrigerator. And my sister looked at it, and she goes, "Who put this up here?" She's like, "Did one of the kids put it up there or whatever?" And everybody's like, "No, I don't know where it came from." And so my sister didn't think anything of it, so I thought, okay, and she left it there. So they're living in the house and stuff, and my niece starts complaining that there's something wrong with her room. Like, my room's weird. I don't like my room. Something ain't right about it. But when she was like around 12 when this was going on, maybe a little younger. So kids, their imaginations run with them and stuff like that. But she would not sleep in her room. She insisted she would go into her parents' room, and she would sleep on the floor next to their bed instead of sleeping in her bed in her room, because she goes, there's something there. She didn't like it. Well, after a while, they've been there and stuff, and all of a sudden, these weird things started to happen. My niece finds a piece of jewelry laying on the floor in her room. And I think it was a necklace, and she brings it out to, my sister, and it's like, "Mom, I found it. What is this? Is this yours?" Or, and they're like, "No, I don't know what it, no, it doesn't belong to me. Is it one of your friends?" And she's like, "No, it doesn't belong." And she had checked, later, I guess, and it did belong to any of her friends. So I don't know where this necklace came from. It was a thin, small gold necklace. So as time goes by, she always thinks, yeah, there's something watching me in my room. I always feel, but nothing that was going to harm her. Like, she didn't feel like it was going to harm her. It just creeped her out. And then as time goes by, she finds a ring on the floor in the middle of the room again, the same area that the necklace appeared. And it's looks like a, small diamond ring. She goes, "Mom, is this yours? This was in my room. Were you in my room cleaning? Is this your?" No. Where'd you get that? And she goes, "Well, it was on the floor in my room." So again, another piece of jewelry appears. They have no idea where this came from. And so all the time that they're living in the house, this continued to happen. It'd be maybe a couple years or maybe 6 months, but a piece of jewelry would appear on the floor in my niece's bedroom, and they have no idea. No one ever knew who it belonged to, and she always said that there was something in that room, and that jewelry would appear for no reason. And that room was the only room in the house that had an external bolt lock on the door at the hallway, so that if someone was in the room, you would have locked it shut and been able to bolt it, and you couldn't get out. And it was something extra that somebody had put on that door. And we don't know what.
It so you could lock yourself in the room.
No, you could lock it, and the person couldn't get out of the room.
Oh.
And and the jewelry would appear, and she always had this weird feeling that stuff. I never had any weird things in there. I had stayed over one time there because my house had been destroyed by a tornado one time, and so I had to stay at my sister's house that night, and I slept in my niece's room. She wasn't home, and I didn't feel anything weird in that room, but my mind was also pretty well occupied with the fact that my house had just been destroyed. That the back of my house was missing, so but I never felt anything. Yeah, so I never really felt anything, and I had been in her room at other times too, and I actually been in the room by myself at other times, and was kind of like, do I feel anything in here? Does it feel? And I didn't. But, a lot of times spirits and entities, hauntings, things like that, they attach themselves to younger
people.
And to young prepubescent and pubescent teens. That happens. It's something that takes place.
They're more open to that stuff a lot of the time, too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you said that she used to feel like something was watching her, because this one house that we lived in my hometown, my mom even thought it was haunted. And the reason why she thought it was haunted is you go out to our pantry area, and we would have food there, and then you walk out the door from the kitchen, there's a pantry area, then it goes outside, and we locked it every time. We always locked it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, I don't know. Well, anyways, we would go to she would go to make dinner, and she'd go to grab a can of something out of there, and she would see it there earlier that day, and then she'd go back to get it, and it was gone. She didn't know where it was. She asked us if we took it. We said no. We never. We would have told her, because there's no reason to. It was not like we hid eating food or anything. So, and it would be things normally that you don't eat by itself anyway. There was an ingredient for cooking something. So she said that she'd go in there that day to get it for dinner, and it wasn't there. Well, she would go back, and she couldn't find it. She pulled everything out of the cabinet, because she's like, I know it's in here. I've seen it. And she's like, I needed it. That's why I didn't get any, because I knew it was in here. I checked off the list. So she went to make it, and it wasn't there. Well, a couple weeks passed by. She goes out there, and boom, there it is, exactly where she remembered it being, just sitting in the front of the cupboard, right exactly where she had seen it, right front and center.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reappeared there.
That's cool.
And that happened a bunch of times. What?
No. I was just thinking that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, well, it happened a bunch of times when we lived there. But at the same time, my sister and I used to always be freaked out in that house when we'd sleep at night. We shared a bunk bed. I was on the top bunk, she was on the bottom bunk, and her and I both, without ever talking about it really, her and I both would get our blankets, wrap them up as much as we could over ourselves, and lay there and stare at the wall away from the rest of the room. We both would sleep staring on our side, staring at the wall all night long. and we wouldn't look because we felt like there was something standing in, like, maybe not in the closet, but just in that general area, whether it was in the closet or not. We used to feel like something was watching us, and we would sit there and we would sleeping towards the wall every single night the entire time we lived there. We never once slept facing the other way, and if we woke up facing that way, we woke up feeling freaked out, and then we rolled over and we felt like there was something watching us or behind us, but it never touched us. I don't know if it ever touched her or not. I know it never touched me, but I'll have to talk to her about that. But I used to be freaked out all the time, and that was the one house where I felt like there was always something constantly watching us at night, at least when we were in our room. And there's other times I got freaked out. Actually, you know what? I just remembered in the last episode of our podcast, I talked about how I used to, as a kid, I used to see things like that. I used to imagine there were shadows in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was at that house in the driveway is where I saw those.
Okay.
So I guess that might make more sense. I just realized that it was at that house in the driveway. Whenever I was outside of that house, it was like, because it was downtown. You go out and then it shared a driveway with another house. And whenever I was at night over there on that street, like or on the sidewalk or just in our yard, even I looked down that way. That's where I felt like they was in our driveway. That's where they felt like they would run up on me. So it's interesting.
Okay.
I just realized it was the same house, except it was different outside versus inside. Outside, I felt like it was running up on me, but inside, I just felt like it was watching me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting too, is that same thing that I thought I was imagining or seeing in my mind there, like as a kid. In the last episode, I talked about how I saw something like that when I first got into all this stuff recently. And that thing just stood there and stared at me. So I'm just making some connections here now as we're talking about it. It's
yeah.
I don't know if the thing in the house was the same as the thing outside the house or not. I never saw anything in the house. I just know that stuff would disappear on us, and we wouldn't be able to find it. And all of a sudden, it would reappear weeks later in the same exact spot.
That's creepy.
And without going into detail, I do know there's a lot of negativity happening in that house within my family. So I'm not going to go into detail with that, but so I wouldn't be surprised if that stuff was attracted to us.
Yeah, the story that I talked about earlier of the Fox news story, that the news team that went to the house. I just got it up in the news channel. If you go to 243 in the video, you'll see the photograph that the lady took of the shadow being that she called it.
Hanover, York County will be featured on a national TV.
It's funny when my sister, when we were teenagers, I was 16. She would have been 15, I guess. We lived in this house. It was actually it was an old duplex house, and I guess it had been built. I'm thinking it was built in the 40s, and it was in process of my mom's boyfriend, who is now my stepfather. At the time, he was renovating that house, and so we were living there. And my sister said the house was haunted. She always claimed that house was haunted because she says, and I do know this for a fact, she would leave, her lights would be off in her bedroom. She'd come home and her lights would be on. And I've seen it myself. Like, we turn the lights off, we come back, her lights are on. She felt like there was something in that room, but always the lights in there going on and off on her, and kind of really freaked her out.
It's interesting.
I didn't think it was.
It's interesting that you say that, because there'd be times where we could have swore there were many times where we thought we turned all the lights off, and we come home and all the lights were on in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we just thought maybe one of us did it, or my mom thought one of us did it, and we just didn't remember. So I mean, it's possible that maybe we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I was skeptical of it because the house was being renovated, and my thought was, well, maybe there's a short somewhere, that's causing it to go. You turn it off, and there's a short somewhere, and it's causing it to come back on. But she swears that there was something in that room, and that there was some horror. And I will admit, like you would, yeah, my sister. And I do admit, like we would be sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden we'd just get cold, like we'd feel this chill come on, like something coming through, like this cold spot out of nowhere. And the chandelier in the dining room would once in a while move back and forth on its own slightly, shift a little bit from side to side. It would swing. I don't know. I mean, again, you could say, well, large vehicle traveling outside on the road could cause the house to shake and make that chandelier move.
Yeah.
Old spots, who knows? But you put it all together and you got to wonder, is it something? I never thought it was really haunted as much as my sister did.
You thought it was possible, you just didn't see anything.
Yeah. Now, I did work at in Wildwood, New Jersey when I was I would have been about 21 because
Didn't you grow up in Pennsylvania too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did grow up. I lived with my grandparents and grew up in Pennsylvania. I worked in Wildwood, New Jersey one summer, and we were working at this old hotel that was being renovated. And this hotel was like from the turn of the century. It was a Victorian style hotel. It had been abandoned, and they were renovating it. And me and my two buddies had a job there, doing construction work. And the whole place, was a little weird and everything. But if you went all the way up to the third floor, then there was a set of stairs that went up, and it was like this small attic room. Okay. Not real big at all. And it was a room for the hotel. There was a small bathtub there, clawfoot bathtub. There was a sink, but it was a weird shaped room. But everybody said the same thing when they walked in that room. They'd walk in that room and be like, what is this room creepy? Like, no one would stay in that room at all. Even like a couple people going up there at the same time didn't want to be in that room. And you definitely didn't want to be in that room by yourself. It was a hotel room. It was a hotel room, but it was just a small hotel room that was, you went to the third floor, and then there was another single step that went up to this one room. This was almost like this was a single room by itself up on top of the hotel. And it was creepy. I mean, it was just a weird feeling when you went in that room. I don't know what it was. Never had anything happen, but you always had a weird feeling in that room. And everyone was creeped out when they went into that room.
Whether they knew about the room or not, they just went in there and all of a sudden, whoa, no thank you.
Yep. And I didn't feel that anywhere else in the hotel, in the place. You go, because go in and out of all the rooms all day, all the time working, never felt anything. But that one, you didn't want to be in that room, man. That room creeped you out, something fierce, so.
Wow.
But I had a personal ghost experience in, I guess this was the early 2000s, I think. Well, it could have been 90. Well, no, it would have been 2000. Yeah, it would have been around 2000, 2001. I was living in San Antonio, Texas. And my best friend there at the time, me and him were into adventure racing. And they're kind of like mini Ironman competitions. So you have, bike race, canoeing, swimming, that type of thing, and a mystery. So we used to go to these. And there was one taking place in Dallas. And Dallas is about a 5-hour drive to go up there from San Antonio. So we decided that we would leave the night before, stay up there, and then be fresh the next morning to go to the race. So we drive up, and we get to the motel. And this was the motel that the promoters had suggested that were running the event. And there was a house there probably built, I don't know, maybe in the 30s, 40s. It was a 2-story house, lots of windows on it, that type of thing, funky old house and everything. Not scary looking or anything. It was just an old house. And then the motel came off of it, and it was a 2-story motel, all the doors facing to the outside and everything, with the iron rail on the outside and all that. And so we get there, and it was an okay place, nothing fancy, but it was clean. It was nice. So we get there, and we're settling in. We had something to eat, and we're chilling. And we went to bed kind of early that night. We went to bed around probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, because we wanted to be up for the race the next day. And so we went to bed, and I don't know what time it was, but I woke up. Bless you.
Thank you.
I woke up, and you're in that kind of dream state where you're half awake, half asleep, kind of deal. And I roll over and I look at my buddy over in his bed, and I see hovering above him what looks like a woman in a black dress, and she looks like she's choking him. Okay. And I'm kind of just like, your imagination, you're halfway, you're half asleep, kind of just go back to sleep, you idiot. You got this race in the morning. So I just close my eyes and go back to sleep. So we get up the next morning and we're getting ready to go. And my buddy, he asked me, he goes, "How'd you sleep?" And I said, "I slept okay. I just kind of tossed and turned a little bit. The bed wasn't that comfortable and stuff." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I had a really weird dream last night." He goes, "I didn't sleep so well." And I said, "What was the matter?" And he goes, "Well, I had this dream about this woman." I said, "Stop." I said, "Don't tell me anything." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I had a weird dream too. I'm going to write down what happened to me. You write down what happened to you." And we exchanged papers. And on his paper, it said he had a dream that a woman in black was on top of him and was choking him. And true freaking story. I shit you not. We didn't say anything. We read our papers, kind of looked at each other, and we were both like, "Holy crap, dude." And we just packed up our stuff, left. We didn't talk about that incident. We never talked about it until maybe 3-4 months later. We
both were too freaked out.
We were freaked. I mean, we were freaked out about it and everything. And when we talked about it, we even got more freaked out about it, because I'm like, dude, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a freaking woman in black hovering above you. I mean, she was black but transparent, but she was hovering above him and she looked like he was choking. And he had a dream that a woman was over him choking him. That was freaking bizarre. And I never did any, I never got into any sort of like information about the motel or anything about the house or anything like that. I never tried to find any information. Yeah, I was too freaked out. Now I'm interested in, I look back at it now and I'm like, I'd really like to find out information about it, but I don't remember what the name of the place was that we were staying at, anything. If I really wanted to, I could probably search it back and maybe find out the name of the place. If the guy who's the promoter still does those races, maybe I could find it. But that's the most that I've ever come to actually having like an haunting, I guess you would say, or something happened to me. That was the biggest thing.
I guess for me recently, the thing that I haven't really seen anything physically with my eyes or anything like that. I've seen stuff when I was in and out between sleep and through my mind's eye. But the one time, my girlfriend, she's got some, to my knowledge, from what I've experienced, that she's got some ghosts that follow her around and like protect her or something. Like they don't really give her a problem, they don't give her grief. But I was walking in the house I currently live in. I was standing there. And I walked towards my living room from the kitchen, and out of if you look to my right, it would be the hallway towards the front door. And then if you look to the left, it'd be my house, right? I mean, not my house, my room. And so I was standing there, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw what looked like someone run across the hall right in front of the front door and into my room, but my door was shut. I was like, okay. But then I went and, using my mind, went to look for it, and it was one of the ghosts that follow her. And then, like, not even 30 seconds later, she pulled into my driveway.
Oh wow.
Yep. So it's like they went there just before her or something, to look or something. I don't know. It was interesting. That's the most apart that I think is probably one of the times I've seen something physically. And the other time I've seen some physical stuff is when the stuff all started happening to me. I was driving. It was at night, but I saw like movement or shadows on the sides of the road, like a stupid amount of movement out of the corner of my eye until I looked over and then there was nothing. And then I did that a couple times for a week or two. I started noticing things out of the corner of my eye a lot, and then it stopped. So I don't know.
Yeah. Shadow people, as they like to be, as the term is called for that type of victim.
Yeah, well, to my experience, we're constantly in one realm or dimension or another. There's stuff all around us. It's like, imagine layers all existing in the same space. Different layers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Once you start getting tuned into this stuff, you can start to look into and tap into those different layers and see stuff. And that stuff is aware of you a lot of the time before you're aware of it. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. Do you think that, I think people have the ability to tap into that type of stuff on their own, but I know, a lot of times, like mediums and, people that do, or even just anyone who messes around with, they'll use tarot cards or a Ouija board or have a seance. When we were kids, we'd all get around in a circle, and we're going to have a seance.
I've never
and
done
that type
one of
of
those.
thing. And everything. And of course, everybody's trying to scare each other, and that type of thing when you're a kid. But do you think that it's necessary for people to use those things?
No.
Or it just is a vehicle that allows them to open their mind?
I think
it gives them a reason to feel like they're opening their mind.
it's a vehicle that allows people's minds to open up to an extent where those entities their presence can be known.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm not saying that those things themselves do it. It's like, that's what you're trying to do and you're opening your mind to it. So perhaps at some point those things, or maybe those things see you doing it and they're like, okay, fine. And then they just are drawn to it. I'm not sure. But you definitely do not need, to my experience, you definitely do not need any of those kind of tools to tap into that stuff. I think I was talking to some people about it. Like I talked to the one psychic lady about it. Is tarot cards are essentially just for the person that is being read to understand how those things come about. People do use them as a tool, but those tarot cards are not the source of knowledge. It's just a way that is used to represent the knowledge that those people are showing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, sure. Which
I'm sure some people use tarot cards in that capacity, but I know people that are claim to be psychic that only use those because, if someone comes and sits down and all of a sudden this person just starts talking and saying stuff about them, they might be creeped out. But if you show them tarot cards, people are more likely to believe the physical thing that they can see. They're like, oh, that's interesting. How do the cards know that? You know what I mean? It's like... Yeah. That's just my experience with it, but... I don't... Good.
I kind of agree. I think that you don't necessarily need to use those things in order for it to happen. But it kind of gives people a vehicle to make it happen. Correct. You know what I'm saying? If you tell somebody, I just want you to sit here and, manifest yourself to talk to a spirit, and people are like, oh, that's, I can't do that. But if you give them a tool, a Ouija board, and tell them, okay, use this board to connect to the other side, then they feel like they can do it, because for some reason they feel like they have to have a tool that allows them to do it.
Well, it's because we're not told that we can do anything like that. We're always told that this stuff doesn't exist, or it only happens to other people, or
I think it's why a lot of hauntings take a lot of times hauntings happen where kids see things first, because their minds are more open to the fact of hauntings and stuff like that.
Well, it's because they haven't been completely conditioned yet to believe that this stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah. I would really, like to go, though, to one of those places like you talked about, or one of those places, and really see, if you would see something or, experience something. My concern, though, is that I'm always worried that, I'm going to have something attach itself to me, you know, and bring it home. Like, that's always my big concern, that like I'm going to do that,
That
somehow,
wouldn't be an issue.
you know.
Even if it did, I wouldn't. Let's put it this way: it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
In my experience, it wouldn't be an issue, but that's just from the knowledge that I know. So
Yeah,
which we'll save for another time. But
yeah. I mean, hauntings, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's out there. A lot of people experience it. Happens all around the world. You can't deny that the stuff takes place. That's for sure. And let me tell you, that like I said, that one experience I had has me convinced that it definitely is real. No doubt about it. I mean, that's for sure. And I don't care what anybody says. You know.
I agree. I've had personal experiences. My personal experiences with ghosts and all that stuff is more or less me saying something that I believe might be true and then having people confirm that it is true, or them telling me something that I've witnessed and I never said to them. So it's like I told them, oh, there's a ghost and it looks like this. And I didn't say anything. So they're like, hey, there's a ghost, and they tell me what it looks like, and that's exactly what I saw. So like different confirmations and stuff. That's how I've come to believe. Like I've always thought that ghosts and stuff like that could exist. I just hadn't experienced them to my knowledge.
I mean, my thing with it is that there are a lot of stories out there of people having experiences where like they are being attacked or hurt or that type of thing with it. Dr. Taff, he has 3 big cases, he says, in his career that he considers the jewels of his case studies on all of these things. And there was another one that he had where it was very similar to the entity case, and they went to investigate the thing. These people were having experiences, and while they were sitting in the kitchen, they heard a noise in the attic. Sounded like, somebody bouncing a basketball around, slamming it and everything. So they went up to look at it and everything, and they set up a camera up there and stuff and all that and kind of thing. But one of the investigators went up there, and all of a sudden they heard this noise. They go up to see what's going on because the guy was up there setting up a camera. The camera's broken. It's on the floor in pieces. He is freaking there is a cord around his neck, tied in a noose, going up over a bolt. And the cord is being pulled downward and is choking him. And the other investigator that had gone up there saw this, ran over and grabbed him and pulled him down because he was dying. The man was being choked to death.
Wow. And
pulled him down off of the thing and saved his life. And after that, the man, he was like, I think I'm done with this for a while. I'm not going back to that house, and I'm going to kind of step back from this whole thing, because the man would have died if the other guy hadn't gone up there to see what was going on. And that's what freaks me out, is that there are a lot of cases, a lot of things like that people talk about that's happened to them. And that's my thing. Like, I don't want something like that to happen. As much as I want to investigate things and I'm interested, that's always my concern, that I'm going to bring something into my life that, crap, now I got to deal with this BS, and that's always a concern. And as I said last week on the podcast, I mentioned my Ouija board that I have, that's up on the wall. It's over 100 years old. I don't touch that thing. I have never used it. It's a decoration. I would never touch it to use it, because I don't know what it was used for. I don't know what could possibly be attached to that thing. If something, it just freaks me out. But man, when you hear a story about a guy has a cord around his neck and it's being pulled downward and he's being choked, that's freaky. That's freaking scary, man. That's serious mojo going on there with that stuff. Scary things happening.
That's
so
crazy. Well, I do have to say, definitely some good stories we had tonight. And I do think we're reaching the end of our podcast here. We're just about to hit 2 hours. But
Yeah, I agree. I think we're good for this evening.
all right. Well, thank you for everybody that tuned in, and these are your hosts, Jericho and David, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. And next week, our topic, I think, is going to be cryptozoology, or like urban legends.
Yep.
I think that's what we're talking about. So make sure you definitely check us out. And don't forget to check out the Discord for information that we talked to tonight. Oh,
Discord's in the
do you want to tell
description.
people how they can... Yeah, do you want to tell people how they can contact you personally? If they
Through
want?
the Discord would be fine.
Okay, yeah, same here through the Discord. I can also be contacted at sentinelecho1@gmail if anybody wants to go that. But probably the Discord is probably the easiest way to go. So good night, everybody. Good night, Jericho.
All right.
Good night, Marcus.
Good night, David. Good night, everybody.